You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
George Conway points out massive flaw in McConnell team's claim about his health, based on an article by Alex Henderson. McConnell's health is not the story, power is. The real center of gravity. The source report is about Mitch McConnell's hospitalization and the scramble around what his condition means. That is the surface. The political fact underneath is simpler. The people with actual institutional power here are Senate Republicans, especially Majority Leader John Thune and Majority Whip John Barrasso, who are still talking at length with McConnell as if his influence remains operational. That is the point. McConnell is not a private citizen whose medical status matters only out of courtesy. He is an aging Republican power broker whose condition still intersects with Senate leadership. When a party has to negotiate its public line around one man's body, you are looking at a political machine built around hierarchy, not accountability. Transparency theater. The article frames the issue as a transparency dispute, with Democrats, MAGA Republicans, and George Conway all demanding more disclosure about McConnell's health. That framing is convenient and thin. It turns a question of governing capacity into a gossip dispute about anonymity and hospital updates. Who is actually making the decision here? Not the commentators, not the quote chasers on X. The GOP leadership is choosing what to disclose, when to disclose it, and how much uncertainty to tolerate, while McConnell remains part of the Senate Republican command structure. The anonymity of a source is not the scandal. The scandal is that a major governing party has normalized opacity around a man whose political role is still treated as consequential. The useful panic around a body. The source leans hard on medical status because it is easy to narrate. He's alive is the kind of detail that produces clicks while obscuring the real question. What does it mean that a party still has to route leadership conversations through an 84-year-old former majority leader who has been hospitalized for weeks? That is not simply personal fragility. It is institutional decay. The Republican Party has spent years building a politics of loyalty, dominance, and media discipline, then acts shocked when its own aging leadership structure becomes a liability. The problem is not just that McConnell is old. The problem is that the party's power architecture is so concentrated and so brittle that his condition becomes part of the machinery of rule. MAGA selective concern. Scott Jennings, described in the source as Trump's most aggressive defender at CNN, is presented as another voice criticizing the lack of detail. Fine, but this is not a clean good faith transparency crusade. MAGA politics thrives on obscuring its own intentions, laundering cruelty through outrage, and pretending every accountability question is some elite smear. So when MAGA-aligned figures suddenly demand clarity about McConnell, that should not be mistaken for democratic virtue. It is sectional combat inside a party that already normalizes concealment, grievance, and performative certainty. The contradiction is obvious. A movement that treats secrecy as strategy does not become principle the moment it wants a different Republican to look weak. What the reporting misses. The strongest detail in the source is also the one the coverage barely develops. McConnell is still important enough that Thune and Barrasso are having lengthy conversations with him while his health is publicly in question. That is the story. Not the hospital chatter, not Conway's demand for an on-the-record quote. The story is how much power still attaches to an unelected style of party rule built around seniority, discipline, and opaque internal management. This is the familiar structure of modern Republican governance. Personalize the power, hide the process, and then act offended when the public notices the gap. The media then helps by treating the result as a personality drama instead of a regime of institutional hoarding. The pattern beneath it. The larger pattern is a political class that confuses continuity with legitimacy. McConnell's situation exposes how much of Republican power still depends on old men, closed doors, and managed information. The public is supposed to worry about whether he is okay. The more relevant concern is what his party has built around him, who still answers to him, and how much damage can be done while everyone pretends this is only about health. The lesson is not sympathy, it is exposure. Power in the story is concentrated, aging, and protective of itself. The press should stop pretending the main issue is medical privacy and start naming the real one, a party that cannot govern transparently, because secrecy is part of how it governs. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to AlterNet for today's article. With the automated voice of Lesak, thanks for listening.